Okay, welcome everyone to Retirement Income Intel, our monthly webinar on financial planning. Give everybody a few minutes to get into the webinar here. Great to see everybody. While you're coming in, let us know where you're calling from and what the weather's like. I'm in Golden, Colorado, and it's 50 degrees and raining. So I wish I were where Justin Peak is. And
I won't turn my camera around and show you. Unfortunately, it's another one of those 75 degrees and blue sky days.
so hard for you. My condolences. Yeah. All right. Looks like still a couple coming in. So as people are, all right. Oh, now the chat's blowing up. Let's see. 79 and sunny in Boston. That's not fair. It's supposed to be worse in Boston than here. Buenos Aires. That is might end up being our furthest away one here. Ooh, Bend, Oregon. Love it. All right, great to see everybody. Little house cleaning to start out with housekeeping. So this is a webinar for that will be offering an hour of CFP-CE. So you have to make sure you're on for at least 50 minutes for that, and that you fill out the survey at the end so that we can put in your CFP number and everything. If you need any other sort of evidence for other sorts of CE, we usually do have something that you can put in your files for that. A lot of CE is self-report. So stick with us for that. But let's get to today's topic. So this is a joint webinar with Andy's Risk, and we decided to do this because although there's no business relationship between Andy's Risk and Income Lab, we just found that there were a lot of kind of similar themes that we were talking about around behavioral finance and how advisors work with clients through real parts of life. And so we thought this would be a really interesting topic. And also because our guest today, Justin Peak, who is CEO and founder of Peak Wealth in Carlsbad, California, thus the 75 degrees and sunny, has a lot of experience with this. And just in talking with him, I'm really looking forward to hearing his thoughts on some of these things. I'm also joined by Neil Hickey of Andy's Risk, as I mentioned, another software firm. And I know he thinks a lot about behavioral finance as well. And Neil and I will comment on some of these issues, but like so often when we have financial advisors joining us on a panel, I want to spend the majority of time talking with Justin about those real life experiences, advice for advisors. So maybe I'll start by letting Justin maybe give us a feel for your background and your practice there in California.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. And thank you for the intro. So my goal, my hope today, looking at the participant count, is that you find something I share, at least one or two items that can help move your practices forward in some fashion. That's my goal today, and hopefully that works for all of you. My background is a little bit of a hodgepodge. I was 18 years with a large national firm, Edward Jones. I started in 2004, and I was what they call a scratch starter. So I spent almost 2.5 years knocking on doors, residential door to door, the old school way, which was the like sounds like Charles Dickens, the best and the worst of times. But it gave me very good insight into the citizens of my town and what they were thinking and what they were feeling. And thank goodness the introductions and the referrals and the centers of influence took over to get me off of those doors. And about 3 years ago in 2022, I broke off and formed Peak Wealth. And in part due to the income labs and the Andys of the world, financial planning is in such a wonderful place right now for the independent advisor. And anyways, I love it. It's a passion. It's also a hobby. And we look after about 115, 120 client families. And we are trying to provide everything that matters to them on a financial planning and life front. So that helped, Justin?
That's great. That's perfect. Thank you. So in thinking about kind of what the topic today, I was considering, okay, I think we're kind of trying to address two, I don't know if I'd call them mistakes, but it's definitely like a pattern in kind of discussions about financial planning and talking with clients. Um, One is that we often focus on the client at the point of retirement as if it's like this one time, sort of relationship. And I know today we're going to talk a little bit more about, and by the way, it's that client and usually in good times, right? So it's this sort of like assumption that everything is just, you know, stable. They're feeling good, you're feeling good, and you're just doing some retirement planning together. And today we're going to talk a little bit more about like clients at other points in time, at clients that, but either in life or maybe when times aren't as good and communication there. And then the second is hopefully, like you said, Justin, great name, by the way. Uh, Assuming that, the way that maybe we've always framed things or sort of the received wisdom is always the way that we should do it. And, of course, Andy's Income Lab both have something to say about that, trying to sort of, hey, are there other ways to frame things, other ways to talk about things, other ways to do analysis, other that can help um, deliver for clients, a better experience, a better outcomes in life. So that's what kind of wrapping up as I've thought about the sort of the topic for today. That's what I'm hoping we can get your input, Justin, on kind of how to push beyond those tendencies. Like you said, if people can take away some ideas for how to adjust communication or practice, that'd be awesome. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
all right, so let's kick off here. Um, I know a big part of what we discussed before, Justin, is really like understanding our clients better. I know that's a big and kind of the way they think. I'd love to have you just kind of talk a little bit more about what you mean by that as an advisor. What does that mean to understand how they think?
Sure. And I wrote a few things on the board. I always try to have an agenda for anything I'm doing, especially if there's now 279 of you watching this. I want to make sure that we hit some important things. And if a client honors us being on a Zoom or in our office, I want to make sure that we're organized and have some important things to share. So I think the first thing is the mindset that when this is a hard career, occupation, profession to crack into. And there is an overabundance of resources. I mean, even the resources from the Andes and from the income labs, let alone 10 to 20 to 50 others, there are so many resources that sometimes we try to just apply the way it's supposed to be or what we think a client wants to hear versus actually just meeting the client on their level, talking about what they want in the way that they want. And so the first thing I wrote down behind me is what, why, how. And I feel this might be valuable to some of you watching this because let's go with a situation where someone was just referred to you, right? And I know that many of us have a process. We do a discovery call and then we have a first appointment. And some people require lots of information, some require no information. There's every which way of doing it. The way that we start is just with a simple conversation called what, why, how. So if you were the referral to me, I'm going to start and say, what's causing you to call someone like me in my field today?
Yeah.
And then in the appropriate manner, I'd ask, and why? Why is that bubbling up to the top for you? And how do you see someone like me helping you with that? And now we're at the heart, usually in just a couple minutes, of what matters to that person. And to your point, where I'm already starting to understand how they think and what they want to talk about versus here's us and here's our process and here's the steps you go through to work with us potentially. So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question directly there, but I do think it starts, and you can do that with a client appointment as well. Even one of like us, we have clients who've been with us for 20 plus years. What's the
Yeah.
most important thing, Mary, that you can get out of our conversation today?
Right.
And then the why, and then the how can I help you? How can we help you solve that? Right. So I think I do feel that at times we need to do a better job of aligning ourselves with the client in the way that they wish to be spoken to and talk to them about the things that they want to talk about. I'll pause there. Tell me if I've missed the mark.
Yeah, no, that was really great. And like you said, what, why, how, pretty easy to remember that one too. So yeah, so you're really getting at like let's understand where you are today. Like what's actually going on in your head. I think what I hear you saying is, well, you mentioned one mistake, which is like go right past the client or prospect and just start talking about yourself or your business. And the other one, I guess, what I'm hearing you say is sometimes there's something that's very, at the front of mind for them, and like acknowledging that, getting it out in the open is gonna it's probably going to solve a lot of issues where you miss each other on communication. Because if you have some grand design, I think about it as you get advice about like don't just be there waiting to talk, right? Actually listen and and react to that instead of
Yes.
just hoping you can be on your agenda. Are there any
Well, the
other
way
mistakes?
the
Sorry, go ahead.
oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to just say, are there other mistakes, that maybe people earlier in their career or something might make in that initial discussion?
Yeah, and I don't know that they're mistakes because
Okay.
I didn't know anything. I've learned from making every single mistake, like probably many that are on here. I saw someone chime in, they were at Ed Jones too, and walked the same gauntlet that I have. So, I mean, there isn't anything I haven't done, good or bad, if you will, mistake or doing it the right way. But I feel that if you can understand that if you were to, like, I have a street right here that I'm facing that you can't see, that behind my laptop I'm staring at right now. I know without a doubt 99% at least, probably 100, if I were to ask them the quintessential Nick Murray question, do you know exactly how much you need in order to retire comfortably, but not just that, remain comfortably retired? I know the honest answer is a no from all of them. So I think when you're newer and veteran, just remember I drew a little terrible gift here, right? Prize. We are the prize. We have the prize. We have the gift to give everyone. So just give people a chance to discuss who they are, what they want, and maybe spend more time on, so what have you done so far to solve this? Tell me a little bit about your history. Have you had advisors before? How did those relationships work out? I mean, we're here talking today, so something may not have worked out. Like, address the obvious too. Why are we here today? And what do you think, from your perspective, from your participation, led to that not working? And what do you think you do right in the relationship? What do I need to know? What do my team, what do we need to know about you before working together? Like, spend as much time as you can on who they are and where they've been. And sometimes you can open it up with, hey, tell me your story. I mean, that question, especially of a business owner, tell me your story. I mean, come on. I'll think of my own family, that my parents manufacture specialty metal polish of all things, right? If I were sitting with them, I'd ask them, I'd just say, come on, people don't land in manufacturing a specialty metal polish. How'd this happen? Tell me your story,
Yeah. So
right?
when you're having these discussions, you do want to know what's on their mind, all of those kind of proximal things, right? Why they're sitting in front of you, maybe they had an advisor before. Um, are there particular things you're trying to figure out? I mean, part of it might just be getting to know them, but are there things that you're gonna like, what would you be writing down if you were taking notes?
Say that last part again. What?
What would you be writing down if you were taking notes? Like,
Okay.
okay, I'm gonna need this for like this is I just discovered like one of the keys to this relationship or to this problem.
Well, the one thing that I wish for my whole career that we're all getting now is some type of AI note taker, right? So first of all, I would make sure that anyone on here, provided your firm allowed, another reason I am where I am, built the own firm, is that we didn't have a note taker. Um, Use an AI note taker, because you can't be present with someone, listening for the intonation, listening for that little thing that you can pause and go, that's interesting that you use that word in particular to describe that. Tell me what's behind that. Why did you say X? You can't do that while you're scribbling down, taking notes. So the one thing is, I would tell you, try to either have another person, another body in the room to take notes if you don't have an AI note taker, or use an AI note taker. But for me, and again, this is different to the newer advisors, so I will try to speak to both parties. When you're a newer advisor, you you're going to need to take on clients that may not be with you for life, and that's okay. And you will need to, because you need to survive and you need to build a practice, right? So what I'm seeing is a lot of emphasis in the occupation of, find your niche and only work with those. That's great when you've made it and you've amassed a certain amount of snowfall that you can now kind of carve it out and make it what you want. Um, but I'd say, to the newer advisor, what is it that you can offer someone? So back to that idea, the gift. Is there anything holding anyone back on here, veteran or newer advisor alike, to ask that question of someone? Hey, by the way, I see you at coffee all the time. This is a true story. We have a new client from bumping into him at the coffee shop all the time. Hey, would it be at least worth 15 minutes if we do things of a little different flavor to find out how we do it? Would you have interest? And he's like, I'd love to do that. Right. So I wrote down, do you sound like everyone else? If you sound like everyone else, then don't expect that, don't expect significantly different results. You can take normal things and change the way that you ask them. So I'm deviating from your question here, Justin. I hope that's okay.
That's okay. Yeah.
But when you're talking about income, like let's say retirement income, right? It's part of what we're here for. And I love the guardrails, obviously, of Income Lab. And I love that. I remember when Johnny first used the analogy of GPS, right, versus pass or fail. And you could probably repeat that better than I am, so I won't butcher it right now. But just that concept of talking to people in ways that, like, hey, what's a comfortable amount for you? Justin, if you dare let my income get below this, I'm going to be furious. I'm banging on your residential door. Right? That's a more fun, reactionary way to engage a client than what's the minimum amount of income you'd like to have.
Right.
So sometimes it's just saying things a different way. So, hey, if it's Saturday night, I want to know how you work a little bit better, because at time to time we're going to have significant market events and I want to know, how to talk to you, Neil, let's say. If you're going out for dinner on this Saturday, you're going out for dinner. Is that planned and booked the Tuesday before? Or are you waking up Saturday morning, have a nice brunch, and then you're like, all right, what are we going to do for dinner tonight? Like, which one of those are you? That tells me how prepared I need to be or not, or my team to engage you. So anyways, I'll pause there. But
Yeah, Justin Fitzpatrick. So I'm the challenged one that has two Justins on a. Um, so I'll go JP Justin Peak for you, and then Justin Fitzpatrick. You'll know I'm asking you a question if
All right.
I don't start with JP. So just JP, love what you're talking about. Certainly something at Andy's risk that we believe in 100% and have really sort of built our platform around, which is those deeper conversations with clients, right? It's not just about sort of cookie cutter services. I can build this investment portfolio for you. It's really about providing a much more meaningful, sort of enjoyable, I think, what is the way you're describing it, wealth management interaction. And how do you do that? I mean, from our perspective, and we launched in 2018, it's all about sort of understanding deeper who you're facing off with, right? There's, risk tolerance, what's their risk appetite, and we do all of that. And we've been doing all of that since we launched. But it's also sort of the softer things, sort of the behavioral attributes. And how do you discover the way people are going to react, JP, to the questions you're asking, right? And that'll help you determine how potentially you're going to work with them going forward. And so from our perspective, you're hitting the nail on the head. And what we want to do is give you the tools to help that conversation along. So love the conversation right now, and we'll continue to add where I see fit.
well, and on that note, I remember meeting Helen for the first time over Zoom, and I mean, even your risk appetite questionnaire, right? Immediately, what it does for those that are familiar and those that aren't, I'm sure they do demos, right? But the first question is, how would a friend describe you?
Right.
Immediately, you're getting into the creative side instead of how much punishment can you take, right? Yes, you got to ask those questions too, the red and the green. How much of this can you tolerate? But when you start asking people, how would your friend describe you? Or now you're on a TV game show, right? Like, I always wish I could have been on The Price is Right. I grew up with that one as a kid. The once in a lifetime, you're utilizing language again that's now speaking that the client gets, the client understands better, versus just the, do you prefer down 10 and up 15? I mean, that changes. I mean, that's fluid, right? Ask them in the heart of darkness, ask them in the giddiness of, all-time highs. that changes depending on the weather, right? The market weather. And that, I think the fascination for me with Andy's is that ability to take those behavioral questions, learn about my clients again in another way. And then it also, obviously, you have features that streamline the whole process of onboarding and what have you. So
Yeah, to your point, we put those into reports and policy statements that lets you have that conversation. But it goes back to the way you described your conversation in the coffee shop. I mean, to me, that's much more of an enjoyable conversation with a client, that you're going to get sort of attributes of that client like you would using some of the tools that we have that you wouldn't otherwise. And so, so that's an important part of understanding the full picture as you describe it.
So I think that also helps. I started out this section by saying, what do you mean by understanding how clients really think? And Justin, you shared the kind of the way you might start a conversation. But then I think what I'm hearing you say is like, let's get away from some of this more, I don't know, mathematical or robotic kind of stuff. Not that, I mean, believe me, I love analysis. It's great, but that's not really like a conversation that's going to be inspiring or make somebody feel like, feel great when they turn off the Zoom or leave your office, like you really, tried to understand them. So that I can imagine that builds a lot, a lot more trust in things. You've also used the words, you've talked about complimenting and coaching clients. What do you mean by that, and how would you say that's sort of different than just, giving them advice or, analyzing their situation?
yeah, I've had surrounded myself with lots of great mentors and coaches, and this started with and any Ed Jones folks out there will know the name Tom Bartow, Jason Selk, and just that idea that we're naturally, like, the human existence is to focus on the negative. Oh, I don't have this yet. My business isn't of that size yet. Oh, I wish I had more of my idea. Like, we always naturally focus on the things that discourage us. It's just the way that humans are built. And I think we forget that clients go through that too. So, as an example of coaching a client, I would imagine everyone on here who's had a client for at least a year, they've been doing some very good things. Maybe they've been diligently saving. They followed the monthly, quarterly, whatever savings process, or they stuck through it when we had some volatility. There are things that they can be complimented on. And what's stopping you from bringing them a little bit of that positivity to just call and say, hey, Neil, I know the markets are all hunky-dory right now, but you sat still and did exactly what you were supposed to do back at this period. And I just wanted to say, well done, because not everybody does that. And by you doing that over and over, you're going to be immensely successful with your investing. So you might not even realize that you did something good there. I just want to take a minute to tell you that you did. And then I might go into, a little bit of a coaching on something in the future. And this is something that I think could benefit everybody here, which is I also want you to be very laser focused, not on the value of your accounts, but on the quantity of shares that you have. And what I mean by that is, most people, they log in on their phone, their laptop, they wait for their statement, and they judge success based on the value of their portfolio. That's their measuring stick. It's the wrong measuring stick. The correct measuring stick, and it's really important now before things go haywire again, as they do typically once every 5 to 6 years. And that is, sorry, I got distracted by the chat coming up. I want you to take a look at your quantity. I wish I could turn off the chat so it didn't bubble up, but I want you to focus on the share quantity that you have, because that's the number that you should be looking at and making sure it goes up every quarter, every year. Let me explain what I mean. The market never came and put a gun to someone's head and said, sell me out of your stock, out of your bond, out of your ETF fund, what have you. People hurt themselves, but oftentimes it's because they forget what they have. If I go to real estate, I don't know about you guys, but, especially in Southern California, everybody understands real estate, but especially in certain pockets of the country, San Diego is one of them. So I say, I want you to see those quantity of shares and imagine those are little rental units. And just like your rental units, if you own them, they're going to increase in value over time. And provided your mortgage is less than your rent from the renter, you're going to be paid a little bit of income along the way. So it's your number of properties that will dictate your value and success long term. That's what I want you focused on right now. And why, Neil? Because when we go through that next big market decline, I don't want you doing what all, I'm thinking of a nice word to call them, what all the fickle public are going to do, which is focus on the value. You're going to focus on your quantity of shares. And if that investment property that you were waiting to buy is all of a sudden not selling for $1, but it's selling for 65 cents, what are you doing? You're buying it. You might even buy two. So complement plus coach is just a very natural, normal way of, gives a good reason to call a client. And the other one that I was doing last week that it was literally just to say thank you is, if someone's having a tougher day, and I've had many, I was married in July of 05, and in that month I netted 80 cents. Looked really good to my in-laws, right? Oh, wow, she picked well, right? 80 cents. What I wanted to share there, sorry, I lost my own train of thought there, is, when you're going through the tougher times and maybe you're a little down on your progress or your business isn't where you want it to be yet, like take pride and look backward of where you were. And last week I called a whole bunch of clients just to say thank you. We have a segment of client in a specific niche, and I just called and say, you know what, I always dreamed of having a good long-term relationship with you, and we have it, and it continues to grow. I just want to say thank you. That's it. That's all I got.
That's
And
awesome.
it was great. I talked to 4 of our most important clients and they loved it. So
That's awesome. I know we're kind of going to shift into a more of discussing, basically extending on what you were just talking about, when things are going bad and so on. And I wanted to, for those of you who don't know, I know, Justin, you've mentioned it a few times, this discussion of guardrails, and I know that that was also in the title of today's webinar. So I wanted to just take a second to tie those to some of these themes.
yeah.
One theme would be what you said at the beginning, Justin, is if you're just doing what everybody else does, that you don't really stand out. But another is talking with people kind of where they actually live and think, and getting away from some of the jargon or the framing that maybe we've received from 20, 30 years of kind of standards in financial planning, and actually talking to people in a way that makes more sense to them. So what Justin was referring to, what JP was referring to, is being able to tell somebody, basically, given your situation, given your resources, your age, your expectations, your goals, and so on, what can you spend? And so that's, I'm showing you income lab here. And so these folks, they have, call it 2.8 million, but they got other stuff too. It's all the stuff you can live on: Social Security, pensions, those rental units, and so on. And, given the resources, there's not one number that you can spend, but there's a range, and it's not way outside of that range. I like to say, if you, grew up, if you were a school teacher your whole life, like many people in my family were, you're not going to be flying private jets. You're not expecting to. It's just, but still you want to know what you can spend. And I think what is interesting about this particular approach is you're not looking at stats, you're looking at dollar amounts. You're saying, okay, given these are your resources, and like I said, they've got Social Security and other things too. So don't start dividing 19,000 by 2.8 million. They've got other things to source this. But then being able to say, okay, how are we doing? Where are we? Guardrails are a way of talking with clients about that question, where, hey, if things get a little bit better, we'll be able to spend more. So 19,000 will go to 20. And if things get worse, we may tap the brakes and spend less, or make some other change to the portfolio. So I think we may have mentioned this the other day, Justin, when we were talking, but I've had a lot of advisors talk to me recently about how, when we've had rough markets or something, and that happened recently, after all the tariff talk, or you can go back to 2022 and think about that, or you can think about 2020 with COVID. It's just, there's always something that, if we're just saying, if we just kind of mouth platitudes of like, well, just stay the course, you'll be fine, clients can start to wonder, well, does Justin actually have any plan? Does he know, or is this kind of like fingers crossed behind his back, hoping things will be good? So that's the really nice psychological side of guardrails is you can say, no, no, no. There is a point where we would consider doing something. And one thing we might do is take a look at your spending and hey, maybe we push off that vacation till the next year, or we, go to the brew pub instead of the steakhouse. There are things we can do, and here's the point where we would do it, but you're not there yet. And so that's a really nice kind of client communication aspect to framing things in terms of guardrails instead of what you can run into with, probability of success type stuff where it's, oh, your 90% probability of success went down to 75. What does that mean? I mean, depending on your personality, that might mean sleepless nights, right? I mean, it might be really, a bad move. So I think, beyond this sort of understanding your client, what we're also after here is understanding, how they will react to particular ways you present things. And you just in your example of, shares versus balances, I think is exactly that. Like there's not a given way you have to talk to clients. There's not a way they must understand their retirement plan. I just used probability of success. No one ever walked into you to Peak Wealth and said, "Well, I'm here for my probability of success." No, they want other things from you. So I think that's
Yeah, they don't say, am I passing or failing today? They say, hey, how much can we pull out of the account?
right. Exactly.
Right. I mean, and I have a couple props that I'll share because this is part of, it wasn't on the board, but part of what I wanted to, and I saw that comment, hey, can we go over the board by the end? We'll do that. I learned this and I cannot remember who I learned this from, and I would attribute it if I could remember, but I just cannot. But it's a genius idea. I grew up in England a long time ago, but I have a meter stick. I have about a dozen. I buy them a dozen at a time, meter sticks, old school wooden meter sticks. And at the appropriate time in the appointment, it can be with a new potential client, it can be with an existing that we've not yet done this. I want to use what you guys do to always be able to look my clients in the face and say, you have an incredibly strong portfolio built just for you, giving you the greatest predictability that we can give you. But at the same time, that's all being done so that you are freed up to focus on what really matters in your life. And what I will do is I will take the ruler stick and I have painters, the blue painter's tape, right? It doesn't pull paint off the wall. And if they're in this case 65 years old, I will blue tape out up to 65. And I will blue tape out from age 80 to 100. And you don't even need to see the whole thing, but you get the perspective and you all know where I'm going here. At the appropriate moment, I'll pull this out with the client, potential client, and just say, hey, the reason we take the time and the effort and built the resources for clients with what we do on the technical side is so that you and I and the family, we can really focus on this gap right here. Because yes, centenarians are the fastest growing part of the population, but let's be real. If things go nicely, once you get north of 80, all that travel, all those fun things get tougher to do. Yes, I want them to like answer along with me. And I know 90-year-olds that are able to do all those things, and I hope that's you too. But once we get north of 80, things typically start to change. And that's if life doesn't come and smack us in the face earlier. So, what do you need to know or want to know about our process and what we do so that you have that comfort and that faith? Because this is what I really want my team, we really want to focus on with you.
That's awesome. And now I
And they
understand
get
what
it or
the
they
meter
don't.
stick.
And I think someone's found the attribution. So thank you if they did.
Nice, Ted Klontz, yeah. And it's a meter stick because you need those numbers on there. It's perfect.
And if it's the right family and I feel like they actually get it, and also, again, if you're the newer advisor, sometimes you got to take on, you got to kiss a few frogs. But if you're at the stage where you're only taking on the ideal, if they don't get this and they just want to return to, well, what is your portfolio return? Then that tells me that they really don't get it. I don't care if someone out there is getting you 14% a year or 9 or 7. If you've got a teenage driver and they hit the plastic surgeon and then that surgeon, she sues for lifetime earnings and you got to settle a $20 million judgment against you, it didn't matter if you had 14% a year or 9 or 7. Like there's so many things to take care of within a family that we really only, have interest at this stage of those that get this, that get that life is precious, that time is fleeting. And I do have that teenage daughter, and she just got her license a week ago. So we're going through something over here. It's very good. It's amazing, but also very nerve wracking.
Nice. Yeah, and I'm
Justin,
wondering how much your insurance is going up. But
I don't want to know yet. The license hasn't arrived in the mail, and my agent said that when she gets the license, you call me, we add her, and then I tell you how much it is. And I'm like,
okay.
yeah, Justin Fitzpatrick, I may have jumped in and shown a slide. I'm not sure if it came up or not while JP was talking, but if I can just kind of pile on to his comments and some of yours real quickly, and share a picture.
I can share that I think you sent over some slides. I know you were having trouble sharing, so let me know if this is
The next, keep going, please. One more.
this
So
one.
this is great. So, I mean, this is exactly what JP was talking about. And Justin, I think when you were showing what Income Labs can do and understanding the numbers, I think, for all of us, and JP was speaking to this, it's really important to understand sort of what's the behavioral side and how may they act. I mean, you may talk to JP, correct me if I'm wrong, and every advisor may understand sort of what the risk appetite and even more so what the risk tolerance of a client is, using a tool like Andy's or other tools, based on their portfolio and their account. But what are they going to do based on their behavioral attributes when the market starts going haywire, right? And how are you going to understand that beforehand? And how are you going to engage with your client going forward based on those things? So, for example, the market could be, going haywire, and someone's a trend follower, and you've identified them as a trend follower through various tools like Andy's. And you just tell them, hey, hold on, just don't buy what's ever hot. We've talked about sort of the way you may react. Let's talk through why you might want to make this next investment or purchase, or what you're thinking about. At the same time, someone may be a safety seeker and they may be concerned. And this allows you to say, okay, don't panic about the headlines. We understand what's going on. I understand how you may act in this particular environment. So again, you were speaking to this, but there's really two sides of the equation, the analytical and the behavioral. And Justin Fitzpatrick, if I can bring you back one slide, hopefully folks have seen this study by Vanguard, but sort of we live by this because we are very focused on behavioral finance as part of our overall package. And when you put in your portfolio and then you put in sort of understand their risk tolerance, as well as their behavioral attributes, you can have a constructive conversation and say, hey, based on my understanding and our conversations, here's what the potential impacts can be to your portfolio if you make some decisions based on sort of some of the things that are built into you innate, versus if you just stayed the course with our investment process. So just a couple things to highlight and round out, JP, what you were saying, and I think Justin, what you were talking about with sort of the income plan.
Well, and you jogged me for my third bullet, which is a Nick Murray technique, the question behind the question. Like, Neil, ask me a random question.
Who's your favorite football team?
That's really interesting. What makes you ask? So we're naturally designed to answer a question when we're asked one.
Yeah.
But why? Who said we have to? So if it's a first appointment or if it's an existing appointment, you have to be gentle with the phraseology sometimes. Sometimes it's inappropriate. But I'm a big fan of asking, what is the question? So if someone comes down and sits in the first appointment, let's say they're referred, and the first thing they get after in the first 5 minutes is fees, cost. What does it cost? I actually do literally say, well, we charge a fair price, but that's really interesting for that to come up, so early in a first meeting. Can you tell me what makes you ask at this moment in time? What's behind that question? Or go to the existing client to really scary times, and I do want to talk a bit about that with your income guardrails in a second. So let's bookmark that. We haven't had a sustained 30% decline environment since the Great Recession. COVID, yeah, sure. We dropped whatever it was, the 33 and 34 days or 34 and 33 days. And then a few months later, it was back because we thought we were all going to die, and then we didn't. So we have not had a couple of years of a sustained decline, and that's a whole nother conversation. But imagine in those scarier moments, you can ask that, say, hey, you're thinking, again, I always try to compliment, hey, you're thinking about and asking the right questions, but tell me a little bit more here. How do you, and let's say they talked about some apocalypse du jour, right? Whatever the latest one is. How do you see us getting there from here? Again, just let them get it out versus, oh, you don't have to worry about it because here's a chart. Like, that's not, nobody, you deserve to get a slap across the face. Like, really, you threw a chart in their face at their most scared moment in time. I just feel that sometimes it's okay to pause and just say, I find that really interesting. I'll answer you absolutely momentarily, but what's making you ask that right now? Or what's the concern behind the question there? And it just leads to better, oh, well, I was just told I should ask that. I was told that was one of the first things I should ask an advisor when I sit down. Okay, fantastic. Where did you learn that from? What were you reading? Let me help you out. I'll be your consultant now. Let me tell you some other things you should ask.
Yeah, it leads to great conversations, as you said. And listen, you're building a relationship, right, JP? I mean, so this isn't a one-time conversation. So as you capture that information, and that's what we try to help do, is you capture that information over time, you can go back and, reference conversations like that you've had and reiterate how they reacted and how you see them potentially reacting. So it's really building an ongoing relationship and understanding the client.
Yep. And the guardrails coming back to guardrails in the income side. And that's, if it's okay, I'm just going to go to my fourth bullet.
Yeah, let's do it.
Which is friction in your process. And I wrote the next bear. So I think we haven't had one in so long that there are a lot of veterans, and I'm seeing people pop up on the chat. I don't know who that was about Nick Murray, but I'm going to his last in-person conference in a few weeks, which I'm super excited about. Bummed this is his last one. But when we go through those sustained downturns, there are many of us, myself included, that are really excited for it, for what it does for growth of our businesses. Because if you're, a couple things, most people, perhaps even watching this right now, have not been and served many families during a significant sustained market decline. And I'm not proud of it because now we look after 115-ish families, as I shared at the outset, but I had 374 families that I was in care of during the Great Recession, and it was too many by about 200. And all I did all day was field calls like everybody did. But when I'm talking about what is the friction in your process, you got to make sure your existing clients that you've got a process to tell them that you're okay. Here's what you can spend. Here's your guardrails. Hey, let's see if you feel indifferently about risk. We know they will, but let's just do a reset on the Andy's questions so that we can just see if things really have materially changed. I advocate for, and I guess this is a PSA announcement. Those of you that you are the only person answering the phone, you got to change that before the next significant downturn, because I train admins on how to funnel concerned client calls. You can't just have someone answer. First of all, if it's you can't go prospect clients that are ready to move because no one's talking to them, or they've got an amateur advisor or too new of an advisor is just giving them like, here's a chart, don't worry. Like, you've got to be zoned in, ready to go talk to as many families as possible to bring them on as clients, which means you've got to look after your existing clients. So for example, during that downturn, I had a model where my admins knew to say, hey, I know you're concerned, Neil. Is it about the whole portfolio or just an investment? What is it? Okay, great. And just give me an idea here, pain wise. Is this like a 10 out of 10, like I'm ready to sell, or like, no, I'm just a little bit curious on how Justin, what he thinks of this. Okay, great. And is this something that he can call you back in the next 48 hours, or do you need to hear from him like in the next 30 minutes? Boom, 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 boom. And then they just teed up the calls, because if it's one of our, no, I'm just totally curious what Justin thinks. No biggie. I never sell anything. Well, guess what? That can be pushed to the person that's like, no, we're new to Peak Wealth. We're extremely concerned. It's our first downturn, and we would like to talk to him today. I want to know that, because then we can over deliver by, I'll call them in the next 15 minutes if I can. So when I'm talking about friction, like, how long does it take to onboard a client? With Andy's, we can do the risk quiz going right into the recommended Peak Wealth portfolio, and we're like done and dusted. On the existing client side, the guardrails, running all of those past horrible environments, and still showing them that you're okay. This is as good as we can give it to you. But if you're really concerned, tell me more about that question, that concern behind the concern. Anyways, I'll pause there, but that's what I'm talking about when I say friction in your process, because there are a lot of us that I don't want the carnage to occur to people. Please understand that. But it's common as dirt. We all know this. Every 5 to 6 years, we have a significant downturn, and we haven't had one in so long, and certainly not one that's sustained. And I just know that our business will probably double during that period. So.
Yeah, there's, I remember in one of our master classes, we also, I think Ryan Townsley called it a tale of two bear markets. And I think he was basically talking about that, the friction in his process. And he was comparing, if I remember right, maybe it was the great, global financial crisis versus 2022 or something like that. And exactly what you were saying. Imagine just reactive phone calls from 300 families versus no, you've already thought it all through. And in his case, he uses the guardrails. And I think he said he actually did like a video just showing people, reminding them how it worked, and sent it out at scale to people who needed it. Yeah, just a totally different way. Again, like reminding people what to focus on, and you as their guide, assuming that you have a great relationship because of all the ways that you've managed the communication, they trust you, right? So you saying, hey, focus on this. This is what we need to focus on. That has a big effect. The last topic we had for today that I did want to hit, and you did mention it with your yardstick or meter stick there, was walking with clients as they age or maybe have health changes, like you said, might not even necessarily be at those later ages. What do you do in your practice to kind of think about that, manage for it, cognitive decline, and so on?
Yeah, great question. So, a few different things to share. Where do I want to go first? So, I would say first and foremost, I'll talk to everybody that's on here directly. I want you to imagine for a minute that you have forgotten your banking password. You are on your whatever, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, who cares, and you hit the reset password button. Did that reset password link just go to your primary Gmail, iCloud account? Okay, Justin's nodding his head because that's almost all of you. I bet it didn't go to a private email that nobody knows about, to which you have a 22 minimum randomized alphanumeric password only written down on a piece of paper in your safe at home, that password reset link got sent to. So first and foremost is understanding the world that we're in today, that walking alongside the client is understanding what they're facing. We hear about, and we've had it happen 3 times this year, clients almost being victimized. I feel, and Andy's has this in regards to a cognitive quiz. Sometimes people might hear, oh, how do you give someone a cognitive quiz? How offensive is that? Well, it's quite easy if you present it properly. Mr. or Mrs. Smith, I want you to imagine that, like, Neil's the older client right now. Neil, I want you to go build a website. I bet you could do it, right? You could go onto a site, whatever. But, now you're up against, by the way, I'm going to see who does it faster, better, more thoroughly. It's you versus Apple. All of Apple, right? You're up against this machine. It's not the best analogy, guys. I'm just trying my best here. But for that older person to not feel so embarrassed and not feel so guilt-ridden when they get taken advantage of, is they're up against a machine. They're up against nation states that are absolutely pouring millions and millions of dollars, hypnosis, behavioral modification, neuro-linguistic programming. We have a client that after a 2-hour phone call with a random stranger, got prevented, but willingly went down to their bank. Forget the details of how in less than 2 hours a sane person without dementia got to that place, went down to their bank and withdrew $19,000 cash and was going to give it to someone. I'm not going to get into the details of the how and why, but an hour and a half to 2 hours on the phone with a stranger leading to going down to your, and this is someone that you would like is with it, is sane. So the first things first, when I talk about like cognitive decline, is understanding the environment that we're in. And I do think it starts with all of us, because if you answered like, oh yeah, it goes to my main Gmail if I hit reset password, you're part of the problem. It means you haven't educated yourself on the solution to then be able to go educate your clients. And that's a tremendous value add for us, right? So we look at ourselves and our process. Our process is kind of this gift. I do feel that we are the prize. Our process is the prize. We seal up all the cracks so that that doesn't happen to our families. We actually encourage them. Either some of them we will pay for it, we build it as part of their financial planning fee, others they pay for it. Anyways, I just feel like if it's me against someone else and I'm talking about that, and it's a family that cares about that finite lifespan, right back to the ruler stick, I feel that we're going to win every time. Versus, well, you know, look, we're a fiduciary and we've got the best interest and we get good returns. And like, really, we're protecting the whole family unit here. So I'll pause there. I'm digressing. I'm on just a couple hours sleep. Sorry. Back to you guys.
If I could just make a quick comment to JP's, which is we agree 100% because we're hearing it from Justin Peak. We're hearing it from other advisors. Could be a sensitive conversation. And what we're trying to do is normalize the conversation through our whole profiling process. So JP mentioned it. We do have a cognitive ability test. And what it is you know, it's something that you build a baseline at a certain age with one of your clients, let's say 65. And you have that as part of your regular profiling and conversation. And then you can see over time, are there changes to their responses, right? And if there are changes, then we provide the ability, or you may have the ability in your own systems to put a notation on the account where you have protection, whether it's a durable power of attorney, whether it's some other protection that you put in place, and you and your team know that based on that history that you've built up through that process. So again, could be sensitive. We hope people can normalize it through the tools that we and others put in front of them.
Yeah.
So other than scaring me with that,
I wasn't trying to scare you. Sorry.
So
Just
actually,
reality.
but on that point though, do you get good sort of compliance and action on things like this? I got to imagine it could be, you know, it's kind of like doing an estate plan, like you said, even just getting those documents, durable power of attorney, things like that. It's not the first thing people want to do, and most people will probably put everything else above it on their list. How do you manage to actually get people to act?
It goes back to where we started, their personal what, why, how. So if I were to go through that process, the most important thing to me in my world are my two girls. If someone were talking to me about, if you don't do this, you're jeopardizing everything else for them. Like, you act or you don't. And if you act, you'll be our client. If you're just going to procrastinate and shelve it, we're not going to work with you. So I don't know that you can motivate people. He or she, what is the phrase? He or she convinced against their will remains unconvinced still.
Right.
So if you're not getting to that root, it'll be tough because you're just that annoying reminder. There's certain technologies for sure. We've partnered with an estate planning solution because I am so sick and tired of someone saying, oh, I know, we saw you 8 months ago and you told us to go get the estate plan and you gave us a couple fantastic referrals and we still didn't get it done. Yeah. I'm like, enough of this nonsense. Like, here's the link, go do it. I paid for it for you. Just get your trust done. Yeah. So I think you can bring some of the solutions in-house, but I don't know that you're going to motivate anyone unless they're, unless they understand, their financial, what is called, Richard's called your financial statement of purpose. Right. You talk about my girls and you like, hey, if you don't do this, you could screw up their futures. I'm like, okay, it'll be done. It'll be done in an hour. So
nice. That makes sense. So I know we've just got, 5 more minutes here. We've had tons and tons of people in the Q&A, but yeah, if there's anything on the screen behind you there, Justin, that we didn't talk about that you want to hit?
Just briefly, then we can answer some questions. I put them at the bottom, more prospecting, less marketing. If I've seen a trend over my 20 plus years, is this confusion of prospecting and marketing being one and the same. Prospecting is literally me looking at you, Justin, and asking you to do business with me in some fashion to move forward together. And it requires me looking at you, asking you something that makes my stomach queasy as I await your response in the affirmative or the negative. It's not like, hey, look at this amazing video series I've got and all these people viewing. And, you know, like we're all trying to craft our own utopias in the profession. And marketing is a very different thing. And I think right now, especially in advance of whenever that next significant downturn is, you want to get really, really good at prospecting in the shortest, most efficient fashion. And I wrote down calculator talk where you can use a 10B2 calculator app, a $5 app on your phone, but in 3 minutes with a random stranger at Starbucks, and I've done this in the past, I can literally say to you that question, do you know how much you need? I'm shortening what I say. Do you know how much you need? You don't? You want to find out in like 3 minutes? No charge. It's fun for me. I mean, you need to know this, right? And then you find out they have an advisor. Wait, you have an advisor and you didn't know this? Do you think it might be at least 15 minutes to see what else we do? And the right ones raise their hand and the other ones just, go away. So, but prospecting is that it's asking someone an uncomfortable question, and you can market yourself, go for it. You can do all the marketing you want, but just don't confuse them. Linking up with people on LinkedIn is not prospecting. Sending a random like AI journey of like, hey, nice to meet you. Like pick up the phone and call them. So anyways, I'm off my soapbox there, but are there?
There are a bunch of questions. We have hit a bunch of them. I actually, since I'm the MC, I guess I get to ask my question, which is,
Yeah.
you got a thing at the very top of your board there to help
Yeah.
families become and remain wealthy. Is that
Predictably.
predictably? I can guess what that is, but maybe talk a little bit more about that. And you obviously have a lot of passion about what you do. I imagine that's related.
Yeah, I've had that on whatever board I've had. I've written that on the top of each new one if I've had a new one. So it's always been there since like 2007-ish. And it's just a reminder for me, like what we do, why we do it. And it's predictably is, there's no precision, right? Like as good as all of the tools are that you guys have, I mean, we're still guessing. They're just more sophisticated guesses, right? But the messaging is that I always want our families to know that this is what we're coming in to do every day, is just give you the most predictable journey, loving journey that we can possibly give you. So again, you can maximize those years that you hope to have left, that health that you hope to have left. And I don't know. I don't know why I put it up there, and I don't know why it stayed, but it has everything
No,
else.
I love it. I mean, we talk a lot on really most of our webinars about like, what's the point? What are you trying to do as an advisor? And I think that this is another way of saying things, that a lot of people say who really thought about it. It's not, to give people the best returns or something like that. It's, help them live the best, most meaningful life they can, free of worry where possible, with the resources they have and the time and health they're given. I mean, it's
Yep.
really cool. So I love seeing that.
I have one other statement, and then you can ask whatever you want, which is I do think it's also good timing for people to be making contacts with their important professionals, or what others call COIs. Because when we go through a significant downturn, that's exactly what's going to be asked of those CPAs, EAs, attorneys. Oh, by the way, who do you know that does a good job?
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I mean, we've been doing this a whole hour, Justin, as you mentioned. I know it's been a rough 24 hours. So I really appreciate this. Was a great discussion, really good ideas and examples of how to talk with clients. We do have a recording of this, so a few people have said, "Oh, could you say that again?" Well, you just have to queue it up and find it. But thank you so much, Justin. Thank you, Neil, and thank you everyone for
All right,
joining
you're
us.
welcome. This was a lot
And
of fun. Thank you guys.
absolutely, hope to see you all
Thank
again
you.
soon. Take
All right,
care.
see you.
Bye.